and developing their strategies across Africa. We've been in operations for the last 7 years, and at the firm, I lead the international trade and financial services space. Thanks.
Thank you so much, David, for that. Hamin, please go ahead and introduce yourself. We are actually live on Facebook as well, so please make sure to have your video on.
Okay, good evening, all of you. My name is Hermine Azambumbarga. I am a consultant on trade policy expert. I am also an executive president of Action for Trade and Development in Africa. And I'm very delighted to discuss with you this afternoon about a protocol on investment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this session is going to be a bit interactive, or rather we're going to have a very interactive session. We will just be having a question and answer. So we'd have some questions asked to our two speakers, and then also to our audience. If you have any questions that you would like the speakers to answer, please go ahead and ask them. So I think I'll just get started with the first question, specifically to you, Hamin. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the investment policies in international trade and the importance of the same.
Please.
Were you able to get a question?
Which question, please?
The question is the importance of investment policies in international trade.
Okay, excuse me. Okay, thank you for the question. Okay, first of all, before talking about the importance of investment policy and in international trade, you must first note that to benefit for the opportunities of the African trade-free trade area, companies have two ways to penetrate a market, which are direct or indirect export and a direct or portfolio investment. Whatever the mode of entry, the importing country or the host country must regulate an entry of products or services into his market. This requires at the country level to put in place the trade policy to regulate trade and the investment policy or the policy on investment to regulate investment flow. And now the importance of the international trade on the trade policy is first of all to protect the national assets and essential industry for foreign competition. The foreign competitions is to attract and facilitate the entry of foreign direct investment in priority sector, and also at the international trade. The investment policy are linking the economy to the global value chain or to the regional value chain. This can help to accelerate production and a volume of trade. The policy can help to bring jobs on the country and a knowledge transfer. To summarize, I can say that At the international level, the policy on investment or the investment on policy framework is defined by the investment agreement. So if you want to talk about the investment policy, excuse me, you have to go through the investment agreement at the international trade. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hamin. I'm sorry for my network challenges, but Hamin has given us a brief overview of the CFTA protocol on investment. And before we get to that, I'd like to give us a brief background on when we say the protocol on investment, where are we coming from? So I'd like to first introduce the CFTA. And CFTA, which in full is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. It's a free trade area that brings together 54 African countries to create a single continent-wide market for goods and services, and to promote the movement of capital and natural persons. This agreement came into force on the 30th of May in 2019, where 24 of the 55 countries in Africa and the 54 that had ratified the agreement. It's not to be the largest free trade area in the world after the World Trade Organization, that's the WTO, and its operational phase was launched by the Africa Union on the 7th of July 2019, and later on entered into force on the 30th of May in 2019. I would like us to look at the CFTA in numbers. When we talk of CFTA, what does it ask to offer to the African countries or member states? The first thing, it will be bring together 1.3 billion people across 55 African countries. The CFTA will also bring a combined GDP value of 3.4 trillion USD dollars. It will bring together 30 million people it will also lift 30 million people out of extreme poverty. Again, it will raise the incomes of 68 million who live in less than $5.5 per day. The CFTA will bring about trade facilitation measures that cut red tape and simplify custom procedures. And this will drive 292 billion of the 450 billion in potential income gains. The CFTA will also boost Africans' income by 450 billion by the year 2035. This will be a gain of 7%. It will also add 76 billion to the income of the rest of the world. The CFTA will also increase African exports by 560 billion, mostly in manufacturing sector. It will spur larger wage gains for women, that's 10%, 10.5% actually, and 9.9% for the men. And the CFTA will also boost wages for both skilled and unskilled workers. This will be a 10.3% for the unskilled workers and 9.8% for the skilled workers. Again, we ask ourselves why the CFTA? We've had other regional blocks previously, so why do we go for the continental continental block? Some of the benefits include removal of tariffs and reduced NTBs or the non-tariff barriers. The CFTA will also bring about access to wider markets, as we've seen on the numbers mentioned before. It will make investments worthwhile across the continent. It will drive industrialization, expand different sectors in trade, develop regional value chains, create jobs, and even provide food security. So negotiations under the CFTA, they were categorized into 3 phases: phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Phase 1 covered 3 distinct protocols, that is trade in goods, trade in services, and dispute settlement. Phase 2, which just ended the other day, covered intellectual property rights, investments, and competition policy, which is actually the main reason why we're having this webinar. We want to create awareness on the specifically investment policy, capacity build, and discuss and get different views on what everyone feels about this specific protocol. Once now that the phase 2 negotiations are over, the expectation is the phase 3 phase will kick off anytime, and this will cover digital trade and women and youth in trade. So let's narrow this down to the reason we're here today on the protocol of investment. This protocol was concluded in October of 2022 last year, and it was adopted at the ministerial level at the CFTA Council of Ministers. The protocol defines the protection, promotion, and facilitation of intra-African investment. It also reflects on signals a common African position on various key areas related to it. To investment governance. African negotiators embarked on a year-long process in December 2021 to develop the text of this protocol. And then the protocol was submitted to the Assembly of Heads of States for review, and then it was released to the public earlier this year. So that was a brief background on when we talk of this protocol on investment, what are we referring to? Where does it come from? So back to our speakers again. Amin has given us a brief overview of the protocol, and I'll take this chance now to give Mr. David a chance to tell us, to briefly give us a high-level understanding of the protocol. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Frida. Without having to use too many words, in my view, the investment protocol ideally protects the interests of the stakeholders who would be involved in these investments. So I'm an investor in Kenya. I want to put up a manufacturing plant in Senegal. There is my interests, but then there's the interests of the host nation, which would ideally be Senegal. So for me, that's what I believe this investment protocol tries to do. It tries to take care of both investments, keeping in mind that the host nation has additional interests that may be sustainable development, socioeconomic welfare for their people, knowledge transfer. So this protocol says these are the responsibilities of this person. This is how they'll be protected, and these are the respected. So in my view, in summary, all stakeholders who are involved in a investment transaction. Yeah.
Thank you, David, for that. So I'd like to mention that these are an open discussion. So if you have any comments or question, kindly feel free to type on the chat, and we'll read the questions or comments to our guest speakers, and they'll be able to respond to them. So based on that, I would like to ask a few questions to our guest speakers so that we get to understand this protocol on a deeper level. I'd like to start with you, Amin. Would you kindly tell us the importance of this can you tell us the importance of investment policies in international trade? Amin, you're muted.
Okay, thank you. I think I already done it. I'm not sure. Okay, I will say that to benefit from the opportunity from the African Continental Free Trade Area, a firm have two ways to penetrate a market, and the other way is a direct investment. And at the international trade, or the importance of policy on international trade is that the policy can protect the national assets and essential industries from foreign competition. They can attract and facilitate an entry of foreign direct investment in priority sector, and they can also link the economy to the global value chain, or specifically to the regional value chain. And after, they can bring jobs and many other things, the development, growth, etc. And at the international level, the policy on investment is defined by the investment agreement, like a protocol of investment we talk about today. This is something just that I want to say now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Hermine. We respond in a few. First, let's have David kindly respond to this question. David, what is the status of investment? Sorry. Yes, what is the status of investment policies and regulations in Africa? Have African countries put in place any mechanisms?
In some member states, you will find mechanisms that guide how you can put up an investment, that would provide information of some of the licenses that you need. So it's not done in a very seamless manner across the continent. There are some member states that have done it very well. There are some countries, if you want to put up an investment, for example, in Kenya, there's some information that you might find a bit difficult to get, but there's other information that will be pretty simple to arrive at, in terms of what licenses do you need to set up, what kind of regulations must you be abiding by, what specific regulator you're supposed to go to and get a license. So it's not harmonized, and ideally the AfCFTA wants to try and harmonize all of these across the member states. And I think there's even a question in the chat. What the AfCFTA is trying to do is, if I'm trying to go to a different country, there's one point of contact that I'll go to in that country online and get all the information that I need for whatever investment that I want to make. So to answer your question, it's not done in a very seamless way across the continent. And as far as we've experienced that on some level when advising some of our clients on strategy. There are some nations we'll go to and we'll struggle to get information online. We'll have to rely on networks that we might have in that country, or we'll have to get the information another way. But it doesn't tend to be a very simple and easy process for us, not for all the countries. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, David. I think there's something that you need to bring out clearly before we go on. I think it's important that how many can take this. We explain what's the aim of this protocol. What does it aim to achieve, and what
Hello, please, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, so my question is, we need to understand the protocol in depth. So can we get maybe to understand the objectives or the aim of this protocol, and what's the scope of its application?
Okay, thank you. The main objective of the protocol on investment are, first of all, to foster the structural transformation of the continent by expanding intra-Africa investment flow through promotion, facilitation, and protection of investment that promote a sustainable development of state parties. The other objectives are to establishing a balanced, predictable, and transparent continental legal and institutional framework for investment, and to providing a sound legal framework for the prevention, management, and settlement of investment dispute. That is important to notice that the investment must have certain characteristics to be eligible to the African market. Well, let us go through the scope of application. The protocol set out the rights and obligations for state parties, investors, and investment. And please excuse me. This requires to clarify of those concepts before defining the scope of application. First of all, the state party is the member that has ratified or access to the protocol and for which the protocol is enforced. The investors is a natural person who is a natural or a national of a state party in accordance with its law and regulations, who has made an investment in the territory of another state party. A legal or juridical person in accordance with the definition of the legal or juridical person of the home state in this article that has made an investment in the territory of the host party. And investment is an enterprises or companies establish, acquire, or expand in conformity with the law and regulation by an investor which maintain sustainable business in the territory of that host party. Now, the protocol shall apply to all investment of investor of state parties. Excuse me, the protocol can apply for all investment of investor of state party made prior of the entry in force of this protocol, provided that they meet the criteria of an investment under this protocol, that they are still present or on the territory of the host party at the time of the entry in force of this protocol. The obligation of state party shall apply to all measures adopted or maintained by regional, local authorities and relevant non-governmental body within a territory. Now, the protocol shall not apply, for example, to government procurement, to any investment dispute that arose, or any claim that was settled before the entry in force of this protocol. We can name also the investment made with capital or assets of illegal origin in accordance with the applicable law and regulation of the state parties. Now, the protocol cannot apply to the operation of public debt and state enterprise debt restructuring taken by one of state party. I think that is some part of the scope of application. Thank you for the listening.
Okay, thank you so much, Amin. That's really informative. I think we can maybe look at one question from the participants. And the first, Dr. Nadir, thank you for connecting. I can see your, and also don't shy to share your contact information with participants. You can interact with everyone on board. So take this chance to meet and interact with our participants. So thanks, Dr. Nadir, for sharing that information. We have another question. We have a question from Asha. Asha, you say, how is the CFTA inclusive? Like, how does it help to how does it help the African employment in the informal sector, which is the biggest employee in Africa? David, kindly, would you respond to that?
Thanks, Frida. I believe the interests of those employed in that informal sector has to be taken into consideration when an investment or when an investor is coming into their country. I think that's how I would say the AfCFTA is being inclusive and taking care of them. So if you're coming to the jua kali sector here in Kenya, and you're an investor who wants to put up, I don't know, a steel plant or a steel processing plant here in Kenya, you cannot have a practice, so you cannot run your operations in a manner that would be detrimental to those already operating in the jua kali sector. What that means is, if you're coming to set up here and you know you're having price fixing, or you're not following certain standards, ideally, what I'm trying to say is, if you're a steel, in this same example, you're a steel processor, you're coming into Kenya, you'll have to operate as per the rules that the jua kali sector here operates. You'll have to operate with them on an equal footing. So that's how I think this protocol is taking care of those local informal sectors, is even as we're inviting investors to come in, we're still taking care of the local industries. We're still being very short, we're still taking care to ensure that the investor who's coming in is not coming in to disrupt our industries in a bad way, but to disrupt them hopefully in a positive way. If there is a knowledge transfer that is happening by that investor being there, then that is encouraged. But if that investor is coming there and they're not abiding by the regulatory standards or by the consumer standards that are there, then they're not supposed to be allowed to invest. So informal sector will definitely be taken care of, even as we're inviting investors to come in. We're being careful not to have anybody disrupt and kill those industries that have grown before these investors came. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And when we respond to your question, you're free to respond on the chat section, whether you're satisfied with the response or you need some more clarification. Hamin, kindly take this one. Do we have a one-stop shop for CFTA in every member country? Hamin, can you hear me? David, maybe you can respond before she gets back.
Yeah, it does. I think it's Article 9 of the protocol that recommends that every state party has to have a national focal point. So you have to have one institution that would provide access to information for investors who want to come in facilitating me as an investor who's coming in. So you have to have one national focal point. So the AfCFTA actually recommends that that has to be there within every member state. So some member states, of course, would have ones that are way off developed, already have those platforms where you can find information. Others are still far back, but ideally, AfCFTA is not just recommending and not hand-holding you to get to that level. So I think under the institutional agreements, there's some hand-holding that has to be done, even for those countries that might not have those national focal points that are not as efficient. They're still going to be helped to get to that. So yeah, it does. It recommends that every country have that.
Okay, please let me excuse me today. Regarding to the protocol on investment, we have two main bodies, which are the Committee on Investment and the Pan-Africa Trade and Investment Agency. And at that point, we have a national focal point who provide relevant information on the legal policy framework governing investment. Now, every country have a national focal point who are in institutional arrangement under the protocol on investment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hamin. We have quite a number of questions. Thank you for being so active. The other question is, is there somewhere we can get the investment mandate as been detailed by the speaker? I believe that's what Hamin had taken us through. Yes, we have the protocol. We have your email. So after we're done with the session, we can email that information to you. That's both the protocol and the recording of this webinar. So I hope that answers that question. David, you can take this one. What is the competitive landscape for the specific types of perishable goods being considered for investment? And how can the investment be differentiated from competitors?
Yeah, I was trying to read this question to see if I understand it very well. What specific perishable goods is the person referring to? Because I'm saying, okay, what is the competitive landscape for that specific type? So what perishable goods are being considered here for investment, and how can the investment be differentiated from competitors? Yeah, I think we need to know the specific goods that are being.
Assist with that one.
Can you address it like as a bracket covering maybe perishable goods in as a whole, as a.
May I assist responding to the questions particularly? If also, sorry, Frida, I wanted to ask if we can help with interventions, because some of us were party to this negotiating the protocol actually.
Of course, we'd really appreciate that.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just respond. I guess participants can see my name. I was part of the investment. I'm part of the investment committee under AfCFTA and also under SADC. So the protocol does not particularly address specific sectors. So in terms of business activity, but like one of the former speakers also mentioned, it refers to investment or foreign direct investment. Let's say, generally it refers to investment as an enterprise. So it means any enterprise that is going to be registered in a country A from country B will be considered to be investment from country B into country A. So FDI in country A moving from country B. So in this case, you're looking at investments from countries within the 54 of the AU. So in that manner, it means any activity. So the question of competitiveness of value chains now depends on where an investor is targeting to invest. Is he targeting to invest now in Tanzania, as an example? So then that will consider in terms of what gaps as an investor are you identifying in Tanzania or your partners in Tanzania to do a JV or to do a fully foreign direct investment business. So that in terms of that, then that means there is still a lot of scope, which some of the regional bodies or the regs inside Africa are already doing in terms of doing value chain studies, doing value chain feasibility studies, and those will identify investment opportunities through different value chains. So that's how I would address such a question particularly, and also to say broadly. Because I'm looking at most of the questions here that they're asking particularly to what prescriptions are there in the protocol. And then I would say the protocol doesn't necessarily provide prescriptive policy of things for countries to do. Yes, there are those sections like formation of national focal points, the formation of the AfCFTA investment promotion body. Those are prescribed, but most of the things, there is a lot of room for now domestic regulation. So countries have a say in terms of what they allow and what they don't allow. But okay, it covers a lot of things, like for instance, questions on indigenous people. So for instance, we had a long discussion in terms of sustainability and environmental sustainability issues. So in here, you're talking about how do you look at indigenous communities? How do you look at vulnerable communities in a state? So it allows countries to now then develop own policies, own prescriptions, own laws to now regulate that. But in a general manner, it encourages responsible investments. I think that is even actually in the preamble to the protocol, to say this protocol will look to promote responsible and sustainability in investment promotion and facilitation. So I think those will be my general remarks in terms of providing generic information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Mahua. That's thank you for the clarification. Actually, to add on that, I'd like you to kindly maybe tell us, how does the protocol promote FDI?
Maybe Frida to.
Yes, welcome, Mr. Kalisa.
Thank you very much, Frida. And I want to again thank the speakers and the previous speaker for laying down the framework under which the investment protocol is anchored. And I wanted just to add that it's a framework. It's a framework that covers the investment facilitation within the continental free trade area, but also the question raised on the value chain is a very pertinent one, because partner states need to highlight those sectors they are going to open for investment, be it in agriculture, be it in manufacturing, be it in the service-oriented sector. I think it's important to highlight those areas. Perhaps one may not dive deeper into the fresh produce or vegetables, but I think countries need to discuss and agree in terms of areas that would be opened for both FDI and cross-border investment. So my view on the submission is that while the protocol has been concluded, there is a lot to be done by state parties in terms of domestication of this investment protocol within their jurisdiction. It's important to know that, and how does this protocol, or CFTA protocol, align to already existing investment protocol within the partner states? I feel like someone asked about the centers. At the lake level, we have regional investment promotion agents. And the CFTA is anchored under the REX, is supported by the REX. CFTA is just a coordination framework, but the REX plays an important role. So it is important that we define and articulate and simplify how the investment protocol it comes to complement, not to override the existing protocol. I thought the speaker need to articulate that and make it clear that this protocol builds on existing protocols, investment protocol in the country, to cater for FDI as well as CBI. CBI, these are cross-border investments, which are very critical also in our development and growth agenda. So I wanted just to share that insight, but again, to appreciate the previous speaker who participated in the negotiation, but as well as those who have raised the pertinent question during this discussion. Over to you, Farida.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kalisa. We have another question on the one. Sorry. Someone asked, is there a website where we can get the addresses of these one-stop shops asked about? David?
They're asking, is there an address where they can get? Is there a place where they can get the addresses of these one-stop shops?
Yes.
Sorry?
Is there a website where we can get the addresses to these one-stop shops asked about?
One-stop shops. I don't think it's properly harmonized. I'm trying to remember how we did it when we've been advising. I don't think there's one harmonized place where you can go and find all of them, or it's either it exists and the website has not been fully updated. There's some national institutions that still haven't collected all their data in one central location. So that's why the chances of that being there and fully updated, I don't think it's there.
Okay. How does the level of corruption in Africa affect the success of the CFTA? Kindly, Hamin, take that one.
Well, I don't know how to show a relationship, but it's evident that corruption can affect a protocol. It's just an evidence. If there is corruption, there is no investment. If there is corruption, there is no trade. It's just an evidence. Corruption can affect the motivation or the foster of foreign direct investment. I think.
Okay, as a follow-up question, he says, what policies in the CFTA are put in place to stop political corruption that can hinder the success of the CFTA? Also, anyone from the participants, you're welcome to chip in.
Okay, if I may try.
Yeah, Frida.
So
yeah.
One can take this from the perspective that if each country is trying to be competitive or is trying to be attractive to investors. So generally, as countries, when we're trying to do that, so we'll try to reduce as much as possible the level of corruption. And this is where also the initiation of forming an AfCFTA investment promotion body comes in, because the idea here is to try to build an entity that will work together with national investment promotion agencies in terms of promoting and facilitating investments within Africa and therefore between African states. The idea being that so I work for an investment promotion agency here and also a trade promotion agency. The idea being that behind the mandate of investment promotion agencies is to work as a middleman between investors and governments, is an advocate of investments in government policy. So therefore, the IPAs are responsible or have a responsibility to shield as much as possible investors from political corruption or any other forms of corruption. Of course, I'm not saying that investment promotion agencies cannot be corrupt or are not corrupt, but I'm saying the generic principle or the generic objective is to say we all need investments in Africa and we want money to move from the south to the north and any other direction of Africa. And to do that, you need to be able to create an attractive investment climate in all African countries for this to happen. But of course, all you can do is to build capacity from the perspective of the protocol and the AfCFTA itself through the AfCFTA investment or Pan-African Investment Promotion Agency. And their own national investment promotion agencies. But then in what happens inside the country really still depends much on the country. But the idea here is to build together as much as possible so that then we can harmonize. This is why also when you see a protocol like this, I hope later on we're gonna do what SADC did. I think COMESA or ECOWAS did the same thing, where they also came and built an investment policy framework, which they're saying for all countries within this regional trade or trade body, we prescribe or we recommend that your policy, investment policy, has this particular principles and follows this particular protections against investment. So the protocol in itself emphasizes a lot on protection of investors. But really, you still understand that countries still have a say on what they want done or what they want to do. But like you say, like the other speaker I had in the background saying, it's a difficult one to say, how do you control national corruption at the national level, which then is an interstate issue about education, about reforms in that country in its own and building that country's institutions. But as far as the AfCFTA is trying, you see that structure that is being built to try as much as possible to enhance effectiveness of attracting and facilitating investments, and then sort of building a system that will allow us to have capacity to be able to do that and shield investors from corruption. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to. Yeah.
Go ahead, David.
Something. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Mr. Mokwa's raised up a very good point. When it comes to the national level, the AfCFTA, it's not going to have much of a say what happens nationally at your level. So if you have corruption within your country, it's a bit of a challenge for AfCFTA to come and solve that. However, there are some things that they've tried to cover. So when one of them that I picked when I was going through the protocol some time back was the dispute resolution mechanism. I think there I felt the AfCFTA was basically saying you might go into these countries and find those cases of corruption that are detrimental to you as an investor, or to you, another business who's trying to invest there. Then there's this mechanism that you can go through to try and solve that dispute. So I felt like, that was one component of the AfCFTA, of them trying to support to some extent any disputes arising from corruption or any other issues. But I agree with what the speaker said. At the national level, it's a bit difficult, and I think it's not just the investment protocol that's struggling with that. I think even the other protocols that, when it comes to national issues, they sort of say, hey, you're the one to sort that out. But when it comes to continental trade, then that's when we can guide you. So yeah, I think the dispute resolution mechanism being there, that helps a bit. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, David. I mean, you were saying something.
Okay.
Frida, just to add to what David. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Kalisa.
I just wanted to. Yeah, I wanted to add to what David is saying. This is a general principle. The CFTA, the way it is crafted, the implementation is done at the national level. And I believe the state parties always have a principle or a component in terms of controlling or deterring corruption in their legal jurisdiction. And when we look at even the general principles governing CFTA, there is a principle of transparency and the disclosure of information, and that cuts across all the protocol. Transparency and disclosure of information, because corruption in most cases is exercised when there is lack of transparency. So I think a number of our partner states, especially those who have endorsed the protocol, have that obligation to ensure that they're able to control corruption by disclosing the information, by fostering investment, by ensuring the laws and regulations are observed to spur or to attract both FDI and CBI in our region and at the continental level. So I think this is very important to highlight. The CFTA itself, the way we are treating CFTA, it's like an institution. It's not. It's a framework that provides principles and the guidelines how to conduct trade, both in goods, services, intellectual property, and other elements. So that principle of transparency and disclosure is very important in terms of when we are promoting investment into our continent. So I thought I wanted to add that to what David highlighted, and I think also to respond to the participant who raised that important question in terms of corruption and the instrument we have, all tools to deter corruption. Thank you, Farida.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kalisa. Hamin?
Okay, well, I'll just add that Article 37 addressed clearly the issue of anti-corruption. And I think if the corruption is proved, the investor can be brought before the arbitration body according to the domestic law on the host country. Thank you.
Thank you, Hamin. The other question is, how is the CFTA inclusive? Like, does it help the Africans employed in the informal sector, which is the biggest employee in Africa? David?
Frida, I think I've answered that question earlier on when I mentioned,
sorry.
I think I answered that question earlier on, yeah.
All right. Will there be a regional chambers of commerce, or there's one in place already?
No, I don't think.
Sorry?
No, I don't think there is not a regional chamber of commerce. The protocol present the institutional arrangement under the protocol or under the Africa zone, and I just list the main body. We were the Committee on Investment and Pan-Africa Investment Agency, and on a national level we have a focal point. I don't think there is a chamber of commerce at a regional level. That is my point of view. Maybe somebody can add something.
The Chamber of Commerce generally, I don't think would be up to this protocol to prescribe or any of the protocols under what we are negotiating now. But I believe you see there is already a Pan-African Chamber of Commerce. There are a number of bodies that also have been engaged in terms of coming up to this vision of the AU. So I believe then from the private sector bodies that are already engaged at the African or continental level will come up with something that then they will use as a chamber for this activity, because even at this level, you realize that there is the observation or the understanding of public-private dialogue is still understood to be an important one. So I can't recall what they call that, but there is a body of African business leaders that has been engaging with the AU. Do you call them the council or the AfCFTA council at that high level in terms of discussing issues of industrialization, business, and coming up with what needs to be done? What will come to be called what in future and going forward, because now we are with these protocols being finished and others coming into conclusion, then it comes to the point where then everyone will come and consolidate their activities. The same question in terms of, do we have a website with all contact national focal points? I don't think the Secretariat has formed that yet, but the Secretariat already has a website. Therefore, it will come with possibly with a page for contact points, because they have to, once every member has actually provided their own contact points. I also realized, sorry, thanks.
On what Mako is saying, perhaps is true, but currently we have what we call African Business Council. We have yes, we have an African Business Council, but which is like an umbrella apex body to look into the implementation of this protocol. But at the regional level, like where I see it, We also have a regional or apex body like East African Business Council, where we support our members to understand this protocol, not only on investment, but also other protocols related to competition, intellectual property, youth and women e-commerce. So those framework exist. But in addition, the CFTA Secretariat has come up with a strategy, what we call private sector engagement strategy, general, which we'll be discussing around from 16th to 19th in Cape Town this month in Cape Town. Also that will lay down how private sector and the investment should be aligned, should be able to accelerate or implement the CFTA, including the investment protocol. So I would say that the framework exists, but we need again to do our work in terms of ensuring that the business community understands all these protocols. So I wanted just to add to what Mako was mentioning about the regional council or the African Council. It is the African Business Council, which is also embraced by the African Union.
Okay, Frida.
Yes, Hamin.
Can I add something?
Sure.
Yeah, I think we have to understand clearly the mission of the Pan-African investment agencies, because the protocol said that the mission is to assist state party, their investment promotion agencies, and their private sector to assist state party in building their capacity in the formulation and the implementation of investment policies to foster the expansion of intra-African investment, and especially those that increase exports. The other mission is to facilitate coordination, interaction, and dialogue between other institutions, like, yes, you are saying the national point focal or national focal point, national investment promotion agencies, and other relevant stakeholders by sharing information relevant to trade, export promotion, investment opportunities, and learning and good practice. I think the protocol already solved the problem, because when we're talking about the invest promotion agency on the national level, it can be a chamber of commerce and other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amin. I feel like we have got enough clarity on that specific question. We can move to the next question, which says, how does the CFTA investment protocol address different investment facilitation issues which are witnessed from early of Singapore issues to the recent discussion on WTO? David?
Thanks, Frida. Okay, I think these Singapore issues, if I remember correctly, was something raised by in a ministerial meeting, I think in 1995 or 6 or something like that. And I think they had 3 or 4 key things that they wanted to mention. And I remember one of them was government procurement. So the AfCFTA this protocol doesn't apply to government procurement. Other issues that were raised that were Singapore issues was rules on fair competition, and there was also, fair treatment of investments that are coming in the country without them being interfered by the host nation. So on that second point, there's provisions within the protocol, and I don't say provisions, but I want to say there's situations that allow for a host country to interfere in the conduct of an investor, of an investment within their nation. If, for example, that investment compromises the security of the nation, then they're allowed to interfere with that. But additionally, remember what this protocol is recommending is that have all your information in one specific section that me who wants to invest in your country can come there and see. So even before I make my investment, I'll be able to make a fair judgment on, am I entering into an industry that chances of interference are very high? If, for example, let's say you are a, you're a military equipment manufacturer, it is expected that the investment promotion agencies within that market would say, hey, by the way, we're not opening up this to people coming from outside. So on the Singapore issues, there's some things that this investment protocol addresses. There's other, one of the Singapore issues that was also addressed was fair competition. I believe in the competition policy that is addressed there, where the protocol is recommending you need to have fair competition for any investment that's coming in. You cannot treat your local industries better than what you'd treat someone coming from outside. So it doesn't solve all the Singapore issues, but it attempts to solve a good number of them. And I believe if you read the protocol, it provides some form of guidance that can tell you, okay, so this is ideally the direction that you're following to try and solve those issues. Yeah.
Yeah. If I may also follow up to your response. So this particular question is an issue of competition if you look at it mostly. So that falls within the purview of another protocol. So there is an AfCFTA protocol on competition. So that deals exactly now with issues of competition policy and regulation in and amongst member states under the AfCFTA umbrella. Of course, the investment protocol provides some certain clauses that may be related to that, but it doesn't really try to deal with competition issues of market dominance, of price fixing, and any other competition policy purview issues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we're clear on that. I'll read a different question. As entrepreneurs, we want to enter these markets, but our channel of movement, our channel is movement of finance from one nation to another is some countries' fair issues surrounding the AML. My question is, what are our chances of getting funding from these countries? And how can we apply for these facilities? Hamin, can you take that?
Okay, I'll try. Excuse me 1 minute. Okay, please.
Okay.
Can you start the question, please?
Okay.
Again.
As entrepreneurs, we want to enter these markets, but our channel is movement of finance. I think he meant our challenge. As entrepreneurs, we want to enter these markets, but our challenge is movement of finance from one nation to another, as some countries fear issues surrounding the AML. My question is, what are our chances of getting funding from these countries, and how can we apply?
Okay, in my point of view, what can I say it? The Africa Free Continental Trade Area Agreement have what we are calling an operational instrument. Excuse me. We have the automotive fund, which support investor in the automotive sector, and we have a AfCFTA adjustment fund. So according to the Secretariat, it consists of a 3 sub-fund, namely the core fund, the general fund, and the credit fund. And the core fund will use the contribution for the state parties, as well as grant and technical assistance to address tariff revenue. Now you are talking about the credit. And I think this adjustment for have a credit fund, which will be mobilized to support a public and a private sector to adapt and take advantage to the opportunities created by the Continental Free Trade Area. I think so, and this is the partnership with the Afrexim Bank. I don't know the criteria of eligibility, but I think that the funds are there to support a private sector. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hermine. David, you were saying something?
Frida.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to add two pointers on that. So the first one is, I think the person who's asked that question, I think they are concerned with the movement of finance. So there is a system called the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. I think it's called PAPS.
Yeah.
Ideally, it's to help in moving of currencies between the African nations without having to go to a reserve currency. So if I have Kenya shilling and I want to exchange it for West African franc or something like that, I should be able to use this system, despite the fact that there might be liquidity challenges within my nation for the West African franc, and the same on the other side. So that would help in movement of financing. I believe either early this year or late last year, there were some central banks that were doing a pilot or something was being done around that. I'll go back to my notes and check. So I think that's what was trying to solve in terms of moving funding from one nation to another. The second point, I think, which is also very key that this entrepreneur is asking, is being able to get funding from these businesses to be able to being able to get funding to implement your trade in those nations. So as the previous speaker mentioned, AfCFTA actually does something to support businesses that are trying to raise funding. But additionally, and this is something that we've done in the past and we do all the time, we've seen there's been an influx of trade facilitation organizations that are coming in and saying they're willing to facilitate somebody who wants to set up an investment in a different nation. I'll give a very practical example. We've closed a transaction like that for a business that was based in Uganda, and the investor that we brought on board was based in that country. So what we've ended up realizing with our clients is, if you're trying to enter a specific market, then source for funding in that market. Don't try and source for funding in your home state. You can source for your funding in your home state if you're dealing with Pan-African institutions such as the Afrexim Bank and some of the big continental banks that do this kind of trade facilitation, Stanbic Bank, Access Bank, we've done before. But we've seen what works most of the time. For entrepreneurs, you want to put up an investment in Algeria. Our recommendation would be to source for investors based there, but in addition, source for investors who have a regional play. So I just wanted to clarify that for that investor. I think they had an issue with moving money, but also getting money to start up the investment. So if you're moving money, the PAP system is coming up, and I think it will definitely be a game changer. If you want to raise funding, please think about raising funding from the country that you're in. So, or look for regional banks that we've actually worked with a few, and they've always expressed a lot of support in helping businesses to set up. Yeah.
Frida, just to add to what David is saying, of course, the participants is raising again a pertinent question, because when you look at the challenges, one of the daunting challenges for SMEs across Africa is funding. 80% of SMEs who want to take advantage of the CFTA are complaining about access to finance. That is one angle, and I think what has happened, last month, the Secretary General of the CFTA, Wamukere Mene, and the President of Afrexim Bank, they launched what they call CFTA Adjustment Facility. And it is a facility that is going to address some of the issues related to funding, because the facility has three components. One is a base fund, two is a general fund, and three is a credit fund. And under a credit fund, That's where the fund will be accessed by the private sector, those who want to trade, especially exporters who want to take advantage of this wider market. So the fund, when you look at the envelopes of Afreximbank, they are under CFTA, they are looking at mobilizing $10 billion within a period of 10 years. But so far, Afrexim has committed $1 billion to kickstart the fund, and it will be housed or based in Kigali, Rwanda. The signing took place last month in Kigali. So that is to support both the countries that will be the state parties, but as well as the private sector in terms of accessing Export Development Fund, which will be at a concessional level, which is not the traditional financing, which is very high and with stringent requirements. So I think that's where that's one instrument, and I think it will start operating around July. It has been launched, but has not started, but it will start operating in July, and all countries will have access to that fund, especially the state parties. Finally, to add to what David was saying about PAPS, Pan-African Payment and Settlement Mechanism, is that it addresses the transaction cost related to our currency convertibility. If you have Kenyan shillings, you can trade, you can export and be paid within your currency. So the PAPS comes to take over that risk, currency exchange rate risks, so that you can use your currency, you can trade, be paid within your currency. So those are some of the CFTA instruments that we need to leverage on or use while we are taking advantage of this wider market. I thought I wanted to add that to what David highlighted. Frida, you're muted, please. I think.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Thank you for your input. Let me read the other question, which is kind of related to the one we just responded to. This participant says, will all the investors be playing at the same level in terms of currency and pricing?
Are they asking the investors who would be putting funding in those businesses? Yeah. Or are they the investors that they're referring to? Are they the ones who are funding the entrepreneurs wanting to enter those markets, or the investors doing the investments there?
I think the investors, maybe if you're into FDI.
Okay. Will they be operating in the same level in terms of pricing and in terms of those pricing and what was the second part?
Currency and pricing.
Currency and pricing. So on currency, I don't think they'd be playing on the same one. So if I'm, for example, if you're putting up an investment in Uganda, you'll probably have your capex priced in Uganda shillings. If you're putting your investment in South Africa, you'd have your capex priced in rand. So I don't think the investors would be playing on the same currency and price level, because the protocol doesn't even mention that you have to. On a price point, the same thing. We've done different capex investments for businesses, and you could be setting up the same juice bottling plant in 2 different countries, but the capex costs will be completely different. Maybe because of incentives those industries are being given and all of that. So I don't think they would be the same. I think they would be different. But then, of course, that's why you do your market research before you go in there. You have to, if you want to do the best investment that has the lowest price and the highest return on investment, you have to map out the markets in a very detailed process. And I'm speaking about something that we do with our clients on a day-to-day basis. Don't just identify a market and say that you're going to go there because a competitor is going there. You need to look at, What's the segment that they're operating in? Do you have a sizable market for you to actually feel a return on your investment? You could be getting a return on your investment that is 5x. And then literally the next border, you could be getting an investment that's 6 or 7x. So you first have to set a target. You as a business, what's your target return on investment? If I put in 100 million, whatever currency, what's the target that I want to get out? Then now search for the country that gives you that target, but not the other way. You don't just identify and say, I want to go there because I see it's a good market. You have to assess and see, it's a good market, but does it get me to where I want to be? Is it a favorable return? And I think you've seen even with huge multinationals, some of them initially had planned to open in one country, then they end up going back and saying, oh, wait, we're not going to go there, we're going to go somewhere else. They usually have a target return that they're targeting. So to answer that person's question, there is no price and currency that is recommended. It's up to you to decide.
Just also to add to Frida, to add to what David is saying, what is important again to reflect on is the level playing field. What this investment protocol aims at is to create a conducive environment for both cross-border investment flows as well as FDI flows, and also the protection and facilitation of investment. How are the rules going to protect whoever is investing in this continent? I think that's very important. But then I had highlighted that CFTA Secretariat has come up with 5 key instruments that would enable people who are trading, people who are doing investment. One is to look at what they call trade observatory. When you look at that trade observatory, it even indicates what are the barriers in your export market or you have to endure or go through. So it highlights some of the challenges which will impact heavily on return on your investment, because the rules may be not, they may be harmonized, but not fully harmonized. So you may find that maybe Rwanda attracts more investment, the rules are more favorable for you to do business or to do investment, perhaps than any other country, in a neighboring country, despite that they are all members of the CFTA. So there are those tools that one need to go through and understand what we call market signals. What does the market provide? The same like for the visa, some countries, maybe you get your investment certificate in one day, others may take 3 days, others may take a month, depending on the level of responsiveness of the country. So I think that those are some of the highlights or tips we need to be discussing, because this investment protocol will not bear, it will not answer all the questions, but it provides a framework in terms of how investment will be attracted, will be facilitated, and the framework in which to operate in. So I thought I wanted to make it clear to the participants about this protocol and the level of investment that is going to be facilitated or attracted within the continent.
Thank you very much, sir.
And Frida,
Sure.
if you'll allow me just one more time, I just want to not to emphasize too much, because I'm still seeing these questions coming in on funding. So I'm guessing that there are entrepreneurs who are looking for opportunities in Africa here. I just want to repeat again. Jonah said that, and every speaker said this is laying the foundation for how investments are to be done. But to be able to fully take advantage of the opportunities that this protocol presents, it is each one of us who are entrepreneurs to be the ones to now fully implement it. So the protocol has just said it's going to create a fair environment if you're to put an investment in Mozambique. It's up to you to do the homework and figure out, is that a market for you that's worthwhile your time and worthwhile your investment to get into? So this, like Jonah said, this protocol doesn't answer every question. It's not a band-aid that you apply on everything. There's still work to be done for you as an investment. All this just does is lay the foundation. And one very good example came to mind. We have assisted one person who was in the digital finance space. They wanted to provide a payment platform, and they were a tech company, and they were going into a country still within COMESA. They had already done all the preliminary stuff, already gotten all the licenses. It is only later on they came to realize that competition is so stiff where they were going that it would take them 5 years before they recovered the investment, as opposed to any other country where they had a target of 2 years. The problem is they did this homework after. The market was operating well, competition was fair, but they ended up answering the question of what am I supposed to get out of that country much later. So again, which proves that this protocol will not be a band-aid for mistakes made such as also in putting up an investment. It just gives you the foundation, as John and the other speakers have said. It's up to you who's now putting up your business in that country to do the actual homework. The information we provided for you, you make the judgment and decide if you'll go there or not.
Thank you so much, David. We have one last question from the participants. And he says, one of the challenges of investment in Africa countries is the existence of companies which may dominate the markets or abuse of dominance, and also erode social welfare through unnecessary increase in price of their products and sometimes even limiting output, therefore causing artificial shortage. How does the CFTA investment protocol prepare to address this problem? Amin? Amin, you're muted. Okay, maybe David, you can come in while she reconnects.
Yeah. I want to answer this question in two parts. So the first part, one of the challenge of investment in African countries is existing companies which may dominate the markets, abuse of dominance. I'm glad that that person put that in brackets, because that is a part of a different protocol. So there's a protocol and I think that was a session for yesterday on competition policy that addresses fair market competition. Right? So it talks about abuse of dominance. It prescribes how can a company that is abusing its dominance be assessed, and what are the possible remedies that would be taken on that company. It doesn't say the remedies, but it says the actions to be taken if that was to be found. So that is one of the things that the AfCFTA is trying to solve, not in this particular protocol, but in a protocol on competition policy, and it explicitly addresses abuse of dominance. Because if you're in African countries, it's a big problem, especially amongst state-owned enterprises. You go to certain industries, and even here in Kenya and in COMESA and every region, you know there's one institution that dominates certain sectors of the industry that is government-owned, and so, therefore, it makes competition pretty much unfair. So that is addressed in that other protocol. And I think the second part, abuse of dominance and erode social produces welfare, a necessary increase in price and their products. I think this person, the questions that they're asking here, especially this part on causing artificial shortages, these are addressed in the competition policy. For example, that point of artificial shortages. So one of the things that the competition policy says, you cannot have vertical or horizontal business practices. For example, you cannot do price fixing. You cannot set retail minimum prices and enforce them. You can recommend a retail minimum price, but you cannot enforce it if you're a producer and you're trying to do some vertical kind of business malpractices. So this person's questions are pretty much answered in the competition policy, and I think it'll answer everything that they're asking. Causing artificial shortages, like I mentioned, that is actually explicitly mentioned in that protocol. If we are competitors in, for example, the soda industry, we are not allowed to collude and cause an artificial shortage or say, we're randomly going to hike our prices. You can't do that. Yeah, and there are some institutions that will exist under the AfCFTA and competition policy. One of them is, I think they're going to call it the AfCFTA Competition Authority. So these are the guys who are going to be doing the investigating and pretty much monitoring the markets to ensure everybody is playing at a fair game. Again, I like to throw the implementation of these policies and protocols to entrepreneurs. In as much as there are going to be those institutions, for example, that watch competition in the market, part of your market survey or market study as an entrepreneur before entering an economy, you need to do a competition landscape assessment. You need to understand who are the competitors, which of them are state-owned, and what concessions have been extended to them. Go back, also look historically in that particular industry, what issues on competition have ever arose before, because chances are they're going to repeat again. But the only problem is this time when they repeat, your investment is going to be on the ground. So these issues on dominance causing artificial shortages addressed in the competition policy, and the AfCFTA has institutions that will address that. But additionally, you as an entrepreneur going there, it is your job to do a competition market assessment. Who's there? What do they sell? What's the price? What's the history of collusion in that market? And what regulations have been put in place to address those past problems? Yeah. So, for example, if you're planning to put up an e-commerce company here in Kenya, COMESA passed a judgment on Jumia some time back and told Jumia you have to be responsible for the products that are sold on your platform. So if you felt you will not be responsible for, you just create a marketplace and walk away and get your commission, you're going to be responsible for the products being sold on your platform, because that's happened before under COMESA and they've passed a judgment on it. So those are the things you need to take into consideration before you enter those markets as an entrepreneur. But on the other hand, the AfCFTA has tried to address them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, David. I'd like to ask one last question because we are way behind time. So let me ask this last question and then we'll close for the day. How can the CFTA member states, the RECs, private sector prepare themselves in order to benefit from this protocol? I'm not sure if Amin is back. If not, David, maybe you can just take it.
Sorry, just repeat the question again.
The question is how can the CFTA member states, the regional economic blocs and private sector prepare themselves in order to benefit from this protocol?
Okay, so for the regional economic blocs, I think John mentioned it. The AfCFTA is building blocks of what is being done by the 7 or 8 RECs that are existing within Africa. AfCFTA is borrowing what those guys are already doing and pretty much harmonizing it as one document. So on the RECs, whatever we're building on the AfCFTA is, they're the foundation. So that's already there. I think the second stakeholder you asked was the private sector.
CFTA.
I think even in our firm, we keep emphasizing it with all our clients. You really have to know what this protocol is trying to do, and you really have to know what this protocol, how this protocol will affect your industry, first and foremost, domestically, how will it affect you? Then any future plans that you make strategically, how will it affect them? If you are planning to expand to another country, you need to know what protocols are going to protect you if you're selling a good or a service. So for the private sector, how you need to prepare for them is start familiarizing yourself with these protocols. And luckily, there's numerous trade experts such as TradeSmart Consult, ourselves. These are people to handhold you and guide you through the process of getting to know what are these protocols and what do they mean for me and opportunities that I might want to take advantage of in future. So don't just sit, like you're in an island and think, oh, this thing is being planned up there. I'm waiting for it to come down and get to me. You need to start striking the iron when it's hot. I think there's been pilot phases being run on AfCFTA. I know Kenya is in one, and I think Rwanda is also in one. Certain products are already being traded on a pilot phase. Study them, understand what are the roadblocks that even in the pilot phase, the businesses that are there are facing. Number two, there's sensitization programs that are being run by different stakeholders, GI development partners like GIZ, AfCFTA, private sector players such as TradeSmart Consult, and ourselves, FI Consult. We're running these sensitization programs to teach not only our existing clients, but also, other stakeholders. This is what these protocols mean for your business, and this is what you need to do to move forward and take advantage of it. I think those are the two stakeholders being addressed in that question. Or was there someone else? Frida? I think it was the REX and the private sector.
CFTA member states.
Yeah, the CFTA member states, I think through extension of the REX, they're still part of the building blocks. There are certain protocols aside from the investments. Like if you look at the competition, institutions like the Competition Authority of Kenya would obviously be involved in formulating competition laws at the COMESA level and then the greater AfCFTA level. So the are already on the ground at the negotiation phase, I'd get implementation phase. And that's where now the Secretariat comes in to handhold now those national institutions and ensure they have the resources and the technical capacities to be able to implement this project. A national focal point that will be providing this information. There's some resources that would be needed for that. Those guys need to get a platform where they provide all this information. And it's not just taking information. Up a leather tanning facility in Kenya, the regulations I need for that specific sector. What are the taxes that be exposed to? What are any incentives that the government of Kenya would be offering to me, who is a leather tanning entrepreneur? So the national level, some of them are already doing it, but again, AfCFTA is coming on board to handhold these guys and ensure that all the right things are done at the right time. So REX, there needs to be that self-push and self-drive and wait for things to trickle down, because they might take time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Thank you, Hermaine, and thank you everyone that has been with us through the session. We also want to thank Mr. Kalisa and Mr. Makoa for coming in and sharing ideas. We are really grateful that you could join us. So today we'd say it has been a successful day, and we've achieved our initial objective of awareness creation and capacity building on the CFTA protocol on investment. I can see on the comment section, people are sharing their emails that want us to share the protocol. We'll do that. So long as you logged, the email that you registered with to log into this webinar, will be able to share the recording and the protocol to the same email. And I would also like to mention that tomorrow we also have another webinar on intellectual property rights, that's IPR, and you're all welcome. To get the link to access this, kindly visit our page on LinkedIn and Facebook. You'll be able to get the link to register for tomorrow's webinar, same time, 4 p.m. East African time. Additionally, I would also like to welcome our French-speaking countries from Francophone friends. We plan on holding similar webinars in French so that we don't leave anyone out. And thank you so much. Special thank you to our guest speakers, Mr. David and Madam Hermaine. We are grateful that you could join us, and would like you to have a nice evening and see you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you guys for joining. Do have a lovely evening. We'll end the session now.